I wandered alone in the dark by the resolute light of agony, screaming my song of hurt wings. Nights came and passed, searing my heart. Days arrived, gnawing at my body, eating into me. I breathed the morose breaths served to me as arms. I agonized like a prisoner all through the culture. And though I rubbed the philosopher's stone again and again, the iron did not turn into gold. This poem, boldly expressing the lived experience of the victims of injustice and merciless torture as a result of centuries of caste and class structure, is by Yashwant Manohar. Today, in the 83rd episode of Granthyatra, we are going to learn about his collection of poetry, Utthangumpha, or the Cave of Resurgence. A warm welcome to all the viewers. Yashwant Manohar was born in 1943 at a village called Yerla in Nagpur district. As the family struggled to make ends meet, Manohar had to work as a laborer even while studying in school. He completed his bachelor's degree from Milind College in Aurangabad, established by Babasaheb Ambedkar, and his master's from Marathwada University. Later, he completed his PhD from Nagpur University. Manohar began to write poetry and literary criticism from 1960. His writings were published in periodicals such as Daily Ajanta and Weekly Gaukari. Collections of his poetry such as Swapna Samhita, Primordial Bond of Fire, Pratikshayan, Jeevanayan, and Iconoclasm got published. He wrote novels based on famous women characters such as Gautam Buddha's wife Yashodhara, Jyotiba Phule's wife Savitri, and Babasaheb Ambedkar's wife Ramai, as well as criticism and contemplative and light essays. Manohar retired as a professor from the Marathi department of Nagpur University in 2003. Manohar's first collection of poetry, Utthangumpha, was published in 1977. The poems in this collection destroyed the established parameters of not only Ambedkarite writings but the entire Marathi literature. He gave a call for rebellion against social inequality and oppression through these poems. He candidly depicted the nature of this oppression and injustice with all its inhumanity in these poems. In the poem, A Series of Pain, Manohar writes, "They made hay over my suffocating breaths while I continued to be singed under the scorching sun in the midst of a torrent of happiness for them." Or, in his poem Letter of Ultimatum, he says, "Look at the row of setting suns in the slits of my eyes and tell me how to live while dying every minute." When highlighting the plight of the marginalized groups, which is often glossed over by the so-called upper castes, Manohar writes, "Yesterday's rain never arrived in our village. We have watered this crop with our tears." Manohar used the popular Marathi poetic meter of Abhanga in a novel manner in his poems. Traditionally, Abhangas were written by bhakti poets to propagate philosophical knowledge and to give expression to their spiritual experiences. On the contrary, Manohar wrote Abhangas to draw attention to the oppression faced by people in their temporal lives and to the social structure that condoned brutality. Hard to rein in the storms within, and the forehead bursts with anger. Or, you hear every day of the sky ripping and the speech cracks as the fire burns. In yet another Abhanga, he writes, "This scorching summer and this prison, entire life has turned ashen here." The poet is convinced of the need to break with the customs and practices that have continued for years, but is acutely aware of how difficult that is. He says, "Everyone here is the child of God. Who can hope for liberation by screaming here?" Or, "You are protectors, flocks of gods, who corner virtue and bestow sins on us. For yon's 28 you reigned in style and left us only the latrines." Critic Aruna Deshmukh says that poems such as these depict the rush of burning feelings in Manohar's mind and the incandescent fire of sorrow burning within it. Witnessing the injustice prevalent in society, a volcano begins to seethe in the poet's perceptive and contemplative mind and erupts as a lava of rebellion through his poems. In his poem Rebellion, he writes, "From now on, I shall not accept the direction given by your finger. What is acceptable, though, is the raised head of humanity forever." To express this inner strength, this audacity, and the compelling call of the natural intrepidity in his mind, Manohar creates a new kind of imagery. I am now turning into someone who cannot be contained quietly within myself. I am all anger. I am, in fact, fire. Or, every memory boiling in my heart like a volcano, from here on, lips will vomit lightning, inevitable, now the blast. Writing about Manohar's poetry of rebellion, Lakshman Bhole notes that his poetry rebels against holding the written word as sacrosanct, against theism, karma theory, straight-jacketed philosophies, pseudo-allegiance to culture, superstition, customs, communalism, all those beliefs that make an individual insignificant. In his poem Enemy, Manohar writes, "I run the plough of destruction on those bastard traditions. All those gods and believers in destiny are my enemies who cemented untouchability and turned it into a sweet lyric. Those who believe the written word and the manifest obscure duality are my enemies, for they prevented my liberation." This poetry strives for a transformation in the society. When the tender breaths of those who were beaten in the dark scream around me, infinite adamant storms surge even in this diminutive body for resurgence. Speaking about these poems, noted poet Shirish Pai has said, "Although this rebellion is out to burn down the world, the sorrow in its belly is so scorching that it is inevitable that it should end in such a horrendous blast. But its future is beautiful. It hopes to create a sacred, pure and glorious world." Look at Manohar's poem again. "Show the lamp again to this blind house of directions, or with a million suns in your bosom, torch the whole situation." A few lines in his poem, The Protest, depict the extent of anger against injustice in the poet's mind and the fact that instead of becoming weak by this all-pervading inequality sanctified by society, he has the courage and inner strength to fight against it. "Let the procession of those honored fools march against me. I shall go tearing the grand capes of those killers like a torrent. I'll burn all the tents of those assassins without remorse. I shall trample this arrogance of the sons of gods under my feet. I shall not go dumbly, but curse this whole spread. I came with answers and will go with questions." In another poem he writes, "Day stands in my courtyard and revolution at the border. Even if I were to throw away my brain, attaining peace I'll find harder." Destruction of untouchability and rituals upsurge in every lane. Uprising will commence here, fire in every field. Writer Baburao Bagul says that Manohar's poetry does not quarrel with the individual. Rather, it rebels against the establishment. To condemn the traditional philosophies that upheld the Varna system and the customs that protected the class that oppressed the marginalized, Manohar again turns to the Abhanga meter. "जळो त्याचे तोंड, वाणी होवो रांड, पोशिती कुभांड आजही जे." May his face burn and his speech spoil, one who supports lies even today. I will strangle the god by his throat and etch his back with my sandals. Burn that spirituality, their ace weapon, throw in the bonfire the karma theory. Or, do not intimidate us with God, we think he is a snake worthy of battering. Do not tell lies, you heretics, we have now turned into caves of resurgence. Noted Marathi writer and artist P.L. Deshpande called these poems as moral curses by Manohar. In his poem A Night of Sorrow, Manohar writes, "The thieves have pocketed the nation and corruption has become the duty of the times. Do not ask anyone medicine for your misery, torch up the night of sorrows yourself." In another poem, he gives a call to action. "Drop the dream of light with your blood, dance the dance of bountiful fire." Through his poetry, Manohar showcases how every sphere of activity related to society has upheld inequality, that they have conveniently created traditions that support each other. That is the reason he categorically protests against traditional literature, customs, and philosophy. "I asked for a horizon for the rise of an aeon in my wrists, asked for infinite wealth of wings and a healthy sky that does not believe in God for my flight." Going even beyond this wish, he says, "On spotting me, even your all-powerful God is going to bow down at my angry feet and seek pardon." To fight against injustice and inequality, Manohar chose the weapon of poetry. He has complete faith in its strength to inspire a revolution. In his poem, An Ode to Humans, he says, "I do not worship words, I sing paeans for humans. I hand light to those whose towns have no sun. Let my words turn into electric bulbs in their dark, gloomy cemeteries. For those who are chased by deathmongers, may these words turn into shields. I'll keep burning the sorrow of those whose lives are fuels for others. I do not worship words, I sing paeans for humans." Through the appalling social and financial inequality experienced by Manohar, he was connected to all the deprived peoples of the world who were fighting for liberation from oppression and their sorrows. He pointedly announces, "My poetry is on a protest fast for all the starving lives." Writing about Manohar's poetry, critic R.G. Jadhav has said that the limited arena of Dalit rebellion gets dismantled at Utthangumpha and expands into a moral revolutionist movement. Manohar's poetry displays courage to overthrow every societal structure that supports oppression. "I question the identity of the heretic who labels my life. I ask for his degree, the right of the person who granted the degree. I ask for the address of partisan scriptures that shield all the progeny of sins, of the God who is the abode of poison and who cares for the sons of thieves. Holding my destructive poem like a torch in my hand, I will burn down this inhuman maze." He goes on to say, "I collapse like the crumbling cliff of some expelled mountain, astounded in my poetry." Writing about the objective of his creativity, Manohar writes in his book Yugasakshi that "I write to establish relationships and habits that would make the entire humanity understanding, creative, enlightened, and happy." In one of his poems, he says, "And from the rests of my poem too, the sun is rising now." Even when calling for a revolution, Manohar's poetry is willing to introspect and is cautious not to lose its equilibrium despite its angry disposition. He writes, "Friends, we ourselves have buried merciless landmines beneath our feet. We let these killer roads walk over us. We are the sculptors of our timeless misery. We did not question the present that was snapping at our dignity, friends. Now I feel guilty when looking up to his memory." His poetry does not stop by merely throwing a light on reality, but inspires even the tired souls to aspire for a bright revolution. His words shine with a brilliance that provides strength to the oppressed to completely destroy the darkness of injustice. O seasonal rains, composing odes to revolution, supreme aeons of light do not fall from skies. I say, let us tie anklets of fire in the feet of every grain of this soil. Let us position alert guards of blasting hurricanes in the ruthless hate of darkness. And let us sow disciplined troops of monstrous lightning in this shack's historical forest of agonies. Poet Yashwant Manohar, who overthrew the servile attitude of centuries to give a new message of equality, is himself with us today to tell us more about his book.
जय भारत, जय संविधान. भावंडांनो, उत्थानगुंफा हा माझा पहिला कविता संग्रह तो 1977 साली प्रकाशित झाला आणि या कविता संग्रहामध्ये त्या आधीच्या किमान एक 10-15 वर्षांपूर्वीपासूनच्या कविता प्रकाशित झालेल्या आहेत. खरं म्हणजे उत्थानगुंफा हा माझा पहिला कविता संग्रह खरा, पण मी असं मानतो की त्याने मला माझा वाङ्मयीन जन्म प्राप्त करून दिला. तिथून माझं वाङ्मयीन आयुष्य सुरू झालं. अनेक मोठ्या समीक्षकांनी महाराष्ट्रातल्या या कविता संग्रहावरती लेखन केलं. सगळ्या विद्यापीठांमध्ये महाराष्ट्रातल्या MA अभ्यासक्रमात तो लागला आणि विद्यार्थ्यांमध्ये, लोकांमध्ये, वाङ्मयामध्ये, समीक्षकांमध्ये एक मानाचं पान त्याला प्राप्त झालं. त्यानंतर माझे एकूण उत्थानगुंफेसकट 13 कविता संग्रह प्रकाशित झाले. पण मी हे आवर्जून सांगितलं पाहिजे की उत्थानगुंफेतील जी विद्रोहाची सूत्रे आहेत, धर्मनिरपेक्षतावादाची सूत्रे आहेत, सर्वांना समान ऐहिक अशा प्रकारचा न्याय मिळावा, सन्मान मिळावा समान असा, अशा प्रकारचं हे सूत्र आणि इहवाद हे आजपर्यंत त्या काळापासून माझ्या कवितेत सातत्यानं प्रकाशित होत आहे. एक काळजी मी घेतली की माझ्या या इहवादी, बुद्धिप्रामाण्यवादी आणि विज्ञाननिष्ठ या जाणीवेमध्ये कोणतीही तडजोड केली नाही आणि तिच्यामध्ये कोणताही अंतर्विरोध मी येऊ दिला नाही. हे फार काळजीपूर्वक मी पाहिलेलं आहे पहा. आणि म्हणून माझी कविता ही 2 पातळ्यांवर, एकतर गरिबी आणि दुसरं असं सामाजिक विषमता, जातीय विषमता, या 2 गोष्टींनी माझं आयुष्य सतत कुरतडलं आहे पहा. या आयुष्याला सतत या 2 हत्यारांनी जखमी केलं आहे, घायाळ केलं आहे. आजवरही हे सगळं मला आणखी वेगळ्या बदललेल्या स्वरूपामध्ये अनुभवायला येतं आणि भोवतीच्या जीवनात ते पाहायलाही मिळतं. आणि म्हणून मी कटाक्षानं चैतन्यवादाला विरोध करणारी, चैतन्यवादी भाषा नाकारणारी कविता लिहिली. आणि म्हणून मला स्वतःला असं वाटतं की मी लोकशाहीवादी आहे म्हणून बाबासाहेबवादी आहे. मी आंबेडकरवादी आहे कारण मी समाजवादी आणि सेक्युलर आहे. आणि ही सूत्रे माझ्या कवितेत सर्व हिताची, मानवतेच्या हिताची सूत्रे आहेत. आणि या सूत्रांच्या विरुद्ध जी विघातक सूत्रे आहे त्यांच्यावरती मी सततच हल्ले केलेले आहे. आणि हे हल्ले आणि हे नवा पर्याय ह्यांचं एक विलक्षण अशा प्रकारचं द्वंद्व माझ्या कवितेमध्ये आहे, उत्थानगुंफेत आहे असं मला वाटतं. धन्यवाद.
Yashwant Manohar's poetry was translated into English, Hindi, Urdu, Gujarati, Bangla, and Kannada. It provided a theoretical base to the Ambedkarite poetry in Marathi. His collection Utthangumpha proved to be unique both in terms of content and form. He is not just a rebel out to destroy the established order, but a thinker who is trying to create a glorious society based on the values of humanism and equality. Do read his collection of poetry Utthangumpha. In his own words, "From now on, I am going to sow sunflowers, and I shall position guards everywhere. I shall not let anyone loot this celebration." We shall meet in the next episode of Granthyatra to enjoy the poetry of a world-renowned Marathi poet. Until then, keep reading.